and welcome to our topic of today, which is on pots. We're going to talk about two different types of pots today. We're going to talk about clay pots and we're going to talk about plastic pots and the advantages and disadvantages of each one. So let's start off with our traditional pot here, which is the clay pot, very widely used in the Victorian times and even up to quite modern day standards. When I started off in horticulture in the 1980s, these were still quite widely used, although plastic was being brought in more and more. Very often used, still the clay pot for growing bulbs in, for bringing them on early, for growing alpines in, and for using in display glass houses. They're called conservatory glass houses. We think of conservatories as being on the back of houses, but big display glass houses are often called conservatory growing. So they're decorative, the clay pot. If you overwater, because it's porous, the clay, it can soak up any excess water, so overwatering isn't as apparent as it is with plastic pots. And as I said previously, that they're extremely decorative. One of the main disadvantages is that they are extremely heavy. If you're doing big batches of these, especially if you're doing lots of bulbs and then having to move them out somewhere afterwards, you need a trolley. You've got to get either two people to move it, or you'll probably do yourself a back injury. So that's the clay pot for you. Now, brought in with the demand of horticulture rising around about the 80s, 70s and 80s, was the use of the plastic pot. The clay pots were too heavy to move around, even if you got them in big batches, it just wasn't feasible. So plastic pots were the answer to everything. Well, at least in these days they were. Plastics are a bit of a debatable issue, which is another video at some other time. But just to say, plastic pots are the most widely used pots nowadays. They've got many advantages and disadvantages. Some of the advantages for using plastic pots is that they're extremely light. If you get big reams of them coming in to the glass house, you can easily move them around as a single person without any injury to your back. I suppose they don't look too bad, but they don't look as decorative as the actual clay pot itself. One of the disadvantages is, well, you could say it's an advantage or a disadvantage, is that because it's not porous, the plastic, if you overwater, your plant will stay overwatered. It won't get soaked up like it does in the clay pot here. So you can overwater. There can be problems from overwatering with a plastic pot. But at the same time, that if you've got the summer months and then you water, it holds the water in for longer. So these are some of the advantages and disadvantages of each. Talking about the different types of pots then, this short pot here, and you can see we've got a short clay pot here as well. These are called pan pots, P-A-N, and these are used for propagation. The reason why they're used for propagation, instead of having a full length pot where you would fill it up with compost and that would be like a reservoir for water at the bottom of it, to make it shorter, there'll be less water available within the actual pot itself, and it's got less chance of the seed rotting, better respiration rates within the pan pots for propagation, whether it's seed or actually whether it's cuttings, either in a clay or in a plastic pot. And then you've got, this is a little sort of 1 litre pots, these ones here, used for general growing. And then I've got some batches over here just to show you. So we have a couple of seed trays here. We've got one called the half seed tray and one called the full seed tray. Now the half seed tray, as you can see, is actually only half of a full seed tray. And the reason why I've showed you this one is that this is what most people, even a lot of professionals, use for seed sowing. Now the reason for that is to actually fill a whole seed tray up with seed. When it germinates, would be huge numbers of seedlings. So unless you're growing bedding plants in really large amounts, you wouldn't use the full seed tray. I'd use the half seed tray. So I'd buy batches of these. Now, when your seedlings have germinated, and here some that I've got earlier, we've got some Tagetes patula, which is the French marigold, just sown just over a week ago into a pan pot. Nice even germination, and they're not almost ready to prick out. Well, maybe within about a week or two they'll be ready to prick out. And this is when you take the individual seedlings and then you either put them into pots, individual pots, or you put them into module trays. So here we have these modularised trays here. These are quite flexible, they're plastic, and they'll fit in really nicely into a seed tray to give it support. These are filled with compost, and then the seedlings that have germinated here are individually what we call pricked out and then inserted into each one of these modules. You can get modules in different sizes. This one here is a 5 by 3, so you've got 15 plants in total. So something that's quite vigorous growing would be excellent to go in something like this. Or usually for bedding plants, we put them into smaller module trays here. So we've got a 6 by 4, giving you 24 within here, which would be typical for actually putting your bedding plants in. So each one of these individually pricked out into the module trays here. Now, something else that I thought I would bring along to show you is a very small modularised tray here. This is one that's been cut down. Here's a full-size one. This one here. So you can cut these down into strips if you like. I really like growing my vegetables in here. Vegetables are fantastic for growing in here, so I would fill it up with just any good multi-purpose compost mixed with a product called vermiculite on a 50-50 basis. Usually mixed and then put in here, and then the vegetable seeds are sown individually or in pairs within the modularised areas. So things that I like growing in here, I really like putting my beetroots in here. I start things like spinach, lettuce, radishes, all sorts of vegetables can get started off in here before they're put outside in the vegetable garden. You might ask, why have the extra effort of putting them in here? Because you can direct sow outside in the vegetable garden. The reason for that is it just brings them on a little bit earlier. You can get the exact spacings that you want within the row when you plant them out. And this is what the RHS at Hyde Hall do out in Rettendon, just outside Chelmsford. On their vegetable garden last year, it looked absolutely fantastic. It was all raised indoors first of all and then planted out. Very little was actually direct sown outside, although it is extra work. You can actually grow your tomatoes in here as well, so you can put individual tomato seeds in here, raise them in here, and once they've got to a particular size within it, they can be transplanted into bigger size pots such as this. And then if they're going to go into a glass house, they can be potted into an even bigger pot or a grow bag and kept in throughout the summer within the glass house. But if you've got an outdoor variety like Moneymaker or Ailsa Craig or Gardener's Delight, you could just transplant them from here, or put them into the pot and then put them straight outside after the risk of frosts have gone, which would be at the end of May. So treat them exactly like you would for your bedding plants. And then just finally on this one here, you can, with the little 9cm pots like this, you can grow some of your vegetables which aren't quite as hardy to be planted out or sown outside mid-March onwards. So things like your runner beans, Phaseolus coccineus, and if you had something like your marrow cucurbita, you could put them into 9cm pots, grow them on inside, and then plant them outside after the risk of frost has gone again. End of May. So thank you for listening.